I came back to Texas to escape, to reconnect with Tyler under the stars we'd shared as kids. But one stolen moment, his hand gripping mine, our breaths mingling in the shadowed barn, sparked a fire I couldn't hide. When his father caught us, my world shattered. Some secrets don't just break hearts, they tear families apart, forcing you to choose between love and survival in a town that never forgives. The Greyhound bus rumbled to a stop at the dusty station in Millfield, Texas, under a sky so vast and blue it seemed to swallow everything beneath it. I stepped off, my backpack slung over one shoulder, feeling the oppressive summer heat wrap around me like an unwelcome embrace. It had been 4 long years since I'd left this place for college in Chicago, and in that time I'd tried to bury the memories of who I'd been here, or rather, who I'd pretended to be. Millfield was a small town where everyone knew everyone else's business, where church bells rang every Sunday morning without fail, and where secrets had a way of festering in the shadows of the endless farmland that stretched out like a sea of green and gold. I wiped the sweat from my forehead and scanned the parking lot, my heart quickening when I spotted Tyler's pickup truck idling near the curb. He leaned against the hood, arms crossed, wearing faded jeans and a worn-out t-shirt that clung to his broader frame. His sun-bleached hair was tousled from the wind, and that familiar, easy smile lit up his face as he pushed off the truck and strode toward me. "Marcus Chen, is that really you?" Tyler's voice cut through the humid air, warm and teasing, just like I remembered. He pulled me into a bear hug before I could respond, his strong arms enveloping me in a way that stirred feelings I'd spent years trying to suppress. The scent of hay and earth clung to him, a reminder of the farm life he'd never left behind. "Hard to forget your best friend," I managed to say, patting his back awkwardly while fighting the flutter in my chest. 4 years in the bustling anonymity of Chicago hadn't erased the way Tyler made me feel, like I was home, but also like I was on the edge of something dangerous. We climbed into his truck, the engine roaring to life as he pulled out onto the main road. The town hadn't changed much, the same old diner with its neon sign flickering open, the high school where we'd spent countless afternoons playing football or sneaking off to the creek, and the towering steeple of First Baptist Church, where both our families had dragged us every week for sermons on faith, family, and traditional values. My parents, devout Chinese-American immigrants who'd built a life here after moving from California, had always emphasized fitting in, excelling in school, and upholding the community's expectations. They'd sent me to Chicago with high hopes, a business degree, a stable job, and eventually, a nice girl to settle down with. Tyler's voice broke into my thoughts. "Dad's real excited you're staying with us for the summer. He's been going on about how we need more young folks like you around, smart, hardworking, with those good old-fashioned values." There was a slight hitch in his tone, something unspoken hanging in the air. I swallowed hard, staring out at the passing fields. "What did you tell him about, my life up there?" Tyler glanced at me, his green eyes flickering with something I couldn't quite place. "That you're too focused on your studies for dadding, was I right?" The question was loaded, heavy with the weight of all the conversations we'd had over the years. Late-night phone calls where we'd talk about everything but the truth, video chats filled with awkward pauses, text messages that danced around what we really wanted to say. In Chicago, I'd found a world where I could explore who I was. Gay bars in Boys Town, tentative dates with guys who understood the struggle of coming out, support groups that helped me accept myself. But back here in Millfield, that world felt like a distant dream, one that could shatter everything if it ever came to light. "Yeah," I lied, forcing a smile. "You were right, books and classes keep me busy." We drove in silence for a bit, the truck bumping over potholes in the road. Tyler's hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, his knuckles whitening, and I wondered if he sensed the lie, if he could still read me as easily as he had when we were kids sharing secrets under the stars. The Henderson farm came into view, a sprawling property with a red barn, silos glinting in the sun, and cattle grazing lazily in the pastures. Mrs. Henderson, Tyler called her mom, but she'd always been like a second mother to me, waved from the porch, her apron dusted with flour from whatever pie she was baking. Mr. Henderson stood beside her, a towering figure with a stern expression that softened only slightly when he saw us. As we pulled into the driveway, Tyler caught my eye in the rearview mirror, and for a moment the years melted away. We were just two boys again, best friends navigating the complexities of growing up in a town that demanded conformity. But deep down I knew this summer would test everything. My secrets, my resolve, and the unspoken bond between us that had always felt like more than friendship. Inside the house, the air was cool and smelled of fresh-baked bread and lemon cleaner. Mrs. Henderson hugged me tightly, chattering about how much I'd grown and how she'd prepared my favorite meals. Mr. Henderson shook my hand firmly, his grip like iron. "Welcome back, son. Tyler here's been needing some help around the farm. Good to have another pair of hands." I nodded politely, murmuring thanks, but my mind was racing. The guest room, Tyler's old bedroom, was upstairs with its familiar posters of football stars and the window overlooking the fields where we'd played as kids. As I unpacked, memories flooded back, sleepovers where we'd whisper late into the night, sharing dreams of escaping Millfield, the time Tyler had defended me from bullies at school, the subtle touches that had always lingered a second too long. That evening over dinner, the conversation flowed easily at first, talk of my classes, the farm's latest challenges, local gossip. But Mr. Henderson steered it toward values, ranting about the way things are changing in this country and how young people needed to hold on to tradition. I kept my responses neutral, nodding along, but Tyler's eyes met mine across the table, a silent understanding passing between us. As I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, the weight of my secret pressed down on me. Coming home was supposed to be an escape, a chance to reconnect without the pressures of city life. But being near Tyler again stirred feelings I'd tried to ignore, and in a town like Millfield, where judgment lurked around every corner, I knew I had to be careful. One wrong move and everything could unravel. The next morning dawned bright and hot, and Tyler woke me early for chores. We mended fences under the relentless sun, our shirts soaked with sweat, laughing about old times. His proximity brushing against me as we worked, his laughter echoing in the open air, made it hard to focus. By midday, we took a break by the creek, dipping our feet in the cool water. "You really do seem different," Tyler said, skipping stones across the surface. "Chicago changed you." I hesitated, choosing my words carefully. It gave me space to figure things out, to be myself away from all this. He nodded, but his expression was thoughtful. "I envy that. Sometimes I feel stuck here, like I'm just going through the motions." We talked for hours, the conversation weaving through our lives, dreams, and regrets. As the sun set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, I felt a pull toward him stronger than ever. But fear held me back, the fear of rejection, of ruining our friendship, of what his family or mine would think. That pattern continued for days: work on the farm, stolen moments by the creek, evenings filled with family dinners where I played the role of the perfect guest. Tyler's parents treated me like family, but Mr. Henderson's offhand comments about proper living made me uneasy. Mrs. Henderson, kinder and more perceptive, sometimes looked at me with knowing eyes, as if she sensed the turmoil beneath my surface. One night after everyone had gone to bed, I heard a soft knock. Tyler slipped in, holding a flashlight. "Can't sleep, want to stargaze like old times." We snuck out to the barn roof, lying side by side under a blanket of stars. The air was cooler, crickets chirping in the distance. Tyler pointed out constellations we'd named as kids, his voice low and intimate. "I've missed this," he admitted, "missed you." "Me too," I whispered, my heart aching with unspoken words. As we lay there, our hands brushing accidentally, or was it? I wondered how long I could keep my secret buried. Homecoming was supposed to heal old wounds, but it felt like it was reopening them, forcing me to confront the truth I'd hidden for so long. The days blurred into a routine that felt both comforting and confining. Mornings started with coffee on the porch, watching the sun rise over the fields. Tyler and I would head out to tend the cattle, our conversations growing deeper with each passing hour. He'd share stories of the farm's struggles, the drought last year, the rising costs of feed, and I'd talk about Chicago's fast pace, the diversity, the freedom to explore identities without fear of small-town scrutiny. But beneath it all, tension simmered. I'd catch Tyler watching me when he thought I wasn't looking, his gaze lingering on my face, my hands. And I'd do the same, memorizing the way his muscles flexed as he worked, the dimple in his cheek when he smiled. One afternoon, during a particularly grueling task of baling hay, we took shelter in the barn from a sudden rain shower. Water drummed on the tin roof, creating a cocoon of sound. Tyler leaned against a stack of bales, wiping rain from his face. "You ever think about what life would be like if we hadn't grown apart?" he asked suddenly. All the time, I wanted to say. Instead, I shrugged. Things change, people change. He stepped closer, his expression serious. "Not everything changes, Marcus." My breath caught, but before I could respond, Mr. Henderson called from the house, breaking the moment. We hurried back, but the air between us felt charged, like a storm building on the horizon. As the first week turned into the second, I found myself grappling with the duality of my life. In Chicago, I'd attended pride events, dated openly, built a circle of friends who celebrated my identity. Here I was back in the closet, performing heteronormativity for Tyler's family and the town. It exhausted me, but the thought of confessing to Tyler, of risking our friendship, terrified me more. Yet in quiet moments, hope flickered. Maybe Tyler felt it too. Maybe this summer was our chance to reconnect, not just as friends, but as something more. But in Millfield, Texas, where tradition reigned supreme, such hopes felt like fragile dreams, easily shattered by reality. The Henderson house had always felt like a second home, but now it seemed smaller, more intimate, with every creak of the floorboards and scent of home-cooked meals pulling me back into the past. Mrs. Henderson's kitchen was the heart of it all, where she'd bustle about preparing breakfasts of eggs, bacon, and biscuits slathered in gravy. The living room, with its worn leather couches and the constant hum of the TV tuned to Fox News, was Mr. Henderson's domain. He'd sit there in the evenings, commenting on the state of the world, his voice booming with opinions on politics, family values, and the importance of hard work. Mr. Henderson had aged in the 4 years I'd been gone, deeper wrinkles around his eyes, a slight stoop to his broad shoulders from years of farm labor, but his handshake was still vice-like when he greeted me that first morning. "Good to have you here, Marcus. Tyler needs a hand, and you're just the man for it. Business studies, practical. This country could use more like you, young men who know the value of tradition and elbow grease." I smiled and nodded, the words "yes, sir" rolling off my tongue automatically. It was a performance I'd mastered in high school, agreeable, unassuming, hiding the parts of myself that didn't fit the mold. Tyler shot me a sympathetic glance from across the table, but he said nothing, focusing on his coffee instead. After breakfast, Tyler led me upstairs to the guest room, his old bedroom. The space was frozen in time, posters of Texas Longhorns football, a shelf of trophies from our high school days, and the window with its view of the rolling fields. "Thought you'd like the familiarity," he said, his voice casual, but his eyes held mine a beat too long. "Better view than the spare room downstairs." "Thanks," I replied, setting my bag down. As he left, I sat on the bed, running my hands over the quilt Mrs. Henderson had made years ago. Being here stirred a mix of nostalgia and anxiety. Tyler and I had spent countless hours in this room as kids, playing video games, planning adventures, sharing secrets. But now, at 21, those memories felt layered with unspoken desires. The days settled into a comforting rhythm. Mornings were for farm work, rising at dawn to feed the cattle, repair equipment, or mend fences under the blazing sun. Tyler was patient, teaching me the ropes I'd forgotten or never fully learned. His hands would guide mine on the tools, showing me how to hammer a nail straight or tighten a wire, and I'd feel the roughness of his calluses, the warmth of his touch lingering even after he pulled away. "Like this," he'd say, his breath close to my ear, sending shivers down my spine despite the heat. We'd break for lunch, often sandwiches eaten in the shade of the oak tree by the barn. Tyler would talk about the farm's challenges, the unpredictable weather, the rising costs that threatened their livelihood, and I'd share stories from Chicago, carefully edited to avoid anything too revealing. The skyscrapers, the diverse crowds, the energy of the city. "Sounds exciting," he'd say, but there was a wistfulness in his tone, like he longed for something beyond Millfield. Afternoons were our escape. We'd head to the creek behind the property, a hidden spot where the water ran clear over smooth stones. We'd strip off our shirts to cool down, lying on the grass, the sun warming our skin. Conversations flowed freely here, away from prying eyes. Tyler opened up about the girl he'd dated in senior year, a high school sweetheart who'd left for Dallas after graduation. "It didn't feel right," he confessed one day, staring at the rippling water, like something was missing. I nodded, my heart pounding. "I know what you mean. Relationships can be complicated." He turned to me, propping himself up on an elbow, his bare chest rising and falling with each breath. "You seem different, Marcus, more confident maybe, like you figured out who you are." The words hung between us, heavy with implication. In Chicago, I'd embraced my sexuality, but here I was still hiding. "Maybe," I said softly. "Chicago gave me space to explore. What about you? You seem restless, like you're waiting for something to change." Tyler was quiet for a long moment, his green eyes distant. "Yeah, sometimes I feel like I'm living someone else's life. Dad expects me to take over the farm, but I don't know if that's all I want." We talked until the sun dipped low, the air cooling as shadows lengthened. Those afternoons became my favorite part of the day, moments where the world narrowed to just us, where the barriers between friendship and something more blurred. Evenings brought family time, dinners around the table, where Mrs. Henderson's cooking filled the air with savory aromas. Mr. Henderson would dominate the conversation, sharing stories from his youth or griping about liberal influences in the cities. I'd listen politely, contributing just enough to seem engaged, but my eyes would drift to Tyler, catching his subtle eye rolls or shared glances that said, "We know better." After dinner, we'd help with dishes or sit on the porch, watching fireflies dance in the twilight. One night, as the stars emerged, Tyler suggested a walk. We wandered the fields, the grass whispering against our legs. "Remember when we used to camp out here?" he asked. "Yeah, telling ghost stories, planning our futures." He chuckled. "Mine was always the farm. Yours was getting out, seeing the world." "And now I'm back," I said, a note of irony in my voice. He stopped, turning to face me. "I'm glad you are. It's been lonely without you." The admission hung in the air, charged with emotion. I wanted to reach out to bridge the gap, but fear held me back. Instead, we walked on, the silence comfortable yet pregnant with possibilities. As the weeks progressed, the connection deepened. We'd share inside jokes during chores, our laughter echoing across the farm. Tyler's touches became more frequent, a hand on my shoulder, a playful shove, each one igniting sparks. My internal struggle intensified, the desire to confess clashing with the terror of rejection. One rainy day, confined to the barn, we sorted tools and talked about dreams. Tyler admitted he'd thought about leaving Millfield, maybe traveling. But family comes first, he said. Dad needs me. I shared my own conflicts, the pressure from my parents to succeed, to fit their vision of success. They want me to be the perfect son, but I'm not sure I can be. Tyler looked at me intently. You're perfect as you are, Marcus. His words warmed me but also terrified me. That night, lying in bed staring at the glow-in-the-dark stars we'd stuck on the ceiling as kids, I replayed the moment. The connection was rekindling, brighter than before, but in this conservative town, with families like ours, pursuing it felt like playing with fire. Still, hope grew. Maybe Tyler felt it too. Maybe this summer was about more than reconnection, it was about discovery. The thunderstorm rolled in unexpectedly, dark clouds gathering like omens over the farm. The power flickered out just as we finished dinner, plunging the house into darkness broken only by the flash of lightning. Mrs. Henderson lit candles, their warm glow casting dancing shadows on the walls. Mr. Henderson grumbled about the generator, heading out to check it, while Tyler and I cleared the table. "Want to play cards?" Tyler suggested, grabbing a flashlight and a deck from the drawer. Like old times. We retreated to my room, his old one, sitting cross-legged on the floor amid the storm's symphony of rain and thunder. The flashlight beam illuminated our hands as Tyler dealt the cards for poker. Laughter came easily, banter flowing as we bluffed and folded. "Remember our sleepovers?" Tyler asked midway through a hand, his voice nostalgic. "When your mom insisted on separate beds because we were too old." "Yeah, I never understood that. We were just kids being kids." "Were we?" The words escaped before I could censor them, laced with years of unspoken truth. Tyler's hands paused on his cards, his eyes lifting to meet mine in the dim light. "What do you mean by that?" The air thickened, electric like the storm outside. Rain hammered the windows, mirroring the pounding of my heart. This was the moment, the precipice I'd avoided for so long. I mean, maybe she saw something in us, something we weren't ready to face. "Marcus," his voice was barely audible over the thunder. I set my cards down, vulnerability washing over me. "I know who I am, Tyler. I've known since we were teenagers. Chicago helped me accept it, being gay, finding community, living without hiding. But back here, it's different." He didn't pull away. Instead, he leaned forward, his expression a mix of surprise and relief. "I've known too, for years, but saying it out loud, it's scary, especially with Dad, the town." The confession hung between us, a bridge built from shared secrets. When Tyler closed the distance, his lips meeting mine in a tentative kiss, it felt like the world realigned. Soft at first, then deepening with pent-up emotion, it was like coming home after a long exile. His hands cupped my face, and I wrapped my arms around him, the storm fading into background noise. We broke apart, breathless. "We have to be careful," Tyler whispered, his forehead against mine. "If anyone found out, Dad, your parents, it could destroy everything." "I know," I replied, but in that moment, with his warmth enveloping me, the risk seemed distant. The next week was a whirlwind of stolen moments. During farm work, our touches lingered, fingers brushing as we passed tools, quick squeezes of hands when no one was looking. At lunch by the creek, we'd sit closer, shoulders touching, sharing whispers and laughter. Evenings at the dinner table became a game of subtle glances, feet nudging under the table, hearts racing with the thrill of secrecy. One afternoon, as we repaired a fence far from the house, Tyler pulled me behind a tree, kissing me fiercely. "I've wanted this for so long," he murmured. "Me too," I admitted, my hands on his chest, feeling his heartbeat match mine. We talked endlessly about our fears, our dreams. Tyler shared how he'd questioned his sexuality in high school, dating girls to fit in but never feeling complete. I told him about Chicago's vibrant scene, the freedom of being open, and how returning here had reignited old doubts. But the danger loomed. Mr. Henderson's comments grew more pointed, rants about moral decay in society, and Mrs. Henderson's watchful eyes made us paranoid. The town gossip mill was ruthless, one slip and we'd be exposed. Still, the love blossomed in the shadows. Late nights after his parents slept, Tyler would sneak to my room. We'd lie together, talking in hushed tones, kisses turning passionate but always restrained, mindful of the thin walls. It felt forbidden, yes, but also pure, two souls connecting against the odds. "What happens at summer's end?" Tyler asked one night on the porch, stars overhead, our hands intertwined in the dark. "I don't know," I said honestly, "but maybe we can figure it out together. Chicago isn't that far." He smiled, pulling me closer. I liked the sound of that. As days passed, our bond strengthened. We'd explore the farm's hidden spots, a forgotten orchard, the old silo, creating memories that felt timeless. Tyler's restlessness eased. He talked about visiting me in Chicago, maybe even moving one day. I felt alive, authentic in ways Millfield had never allowed. But doubt crept in. Whispers from town, neighbors commenting on how close we seemed, made us more cautious. And deep down, I knew borrowed time had an expiration. The storm that had brought us together foreshadowed the one brewing, threatening to tear us apart. Yet in those moments of intimacy, love prevailed. It was forbidden, but it was ours, a flame burning bright in the darkness. The barn smelled of hay and earth, the morning sun filtering through cracks in the wooden walls, casting golden beams on the floor. It was a Tuesday in July, the heat already building as Tyler and I stacked bales. He stood behind me, his arms around mine, guiding my movements. "Like this," he said, his voice low and affectionate. In a moment of carelessness, forgetting the world outside, I turned and our lips met in a soft, brief kiss. "What in God's name is this?" The voice shattered the moment like glass. We sprang apart, hearts pounding, to find Mr. Henderson in the doorway, his face contorted with shock, disgust, and fury, his fists clenched at his sides, eyes blazing. "Dad, I can explain," Tyler stammered, stepping forward, his face pale. "Explain what? That my son's turned into some kind of sinner?" The words lashed out, venomous, echoing in the barn. "Living under my roof, defying everything I've taught you." "It's not like that," I interjected, positioning myself protectively in front of Tyler. "We care about each other. It's not corruption, it's real." Mr. Henderson's gaze turned to me, cold and unyielding. You come here into my home, eat at my table, and bring this filth, corrupting my boy with your city ways." Tyler's voice cracked. "Dad, please, this isn't Marcus's fault. It's who I am, who we've always been." The air grew thick with tension. Mr. Henderson's face reddened further. "Who you are, no son of mine lives like this. It's unnatural, against God, against everything we stand for in this family." He advanced, pointing a finger accusingly. "Get out, Marcus. Leave my property now, or I'll call your parents and tell them exactly what kind of person their son has become. The church, the town, they'll all know." The threat hit like a gut punch. My parents' faces flashed in my mind, their devout faith, their expectations of me as the dutiful son. Exposure would shatter them and me. Tyler grabbed my arm, his eyes pleading. "Marcus, don't go. Dad, you can't do this." "I can and I will," Mr. Henderson snarled. "And you, Tyler, pack your bags. You're no longer welcome here. Find somewhere else to peddle your sins." "This is my home," Tyler shouted, tears welling. "You can't just throw me out." "Not anymore, and if word of this spreads, you'll both wish you'd kept your depravity hidden." The argument escalated as I retreated to pack, voices rising through the house. Mrs. Henderson's sobs intermingled with pleas for calm, but Mr. Henderson was unmovable, his word law. I stuffed my belongings into my bag, hands shaking, mind reeling from the betrayal, not just by Mr. Henderson, but by the world we'd thought we could navigate secretly. Downstairs, the scene was chaos. Tyler confronted his father, defending our love, but Mr. Henderson quoted Bible verses, decrying us as abominations. Mrs. Henderson tried mediating, her face etched with pain, but she deferred to her husband, torn between love for her son and ingrained beliefs. Finally, Tyler drove me to the bus station, the silence between us heavy with grief. "I'm sorry," he whispered as we parked. "I never thought it'd come to this." "It's not your fault," I said, though blame swirled, ours for hopping, society's for condemning. We hugged fiercely, a final touch amid the devastation. As the bus pulled away, Millfield shrinking in the distance, tears streamed down my face. The betrayal cut deep, a father's rejection, a family's fracture, a love exposed and vilified. Back in Chicago, I'd rebuild, but the scars would linger. In the weeks that followed, the fallout spread. Mr. Henderson made good on his threats, calling my parents, spreading whispers through the church. Calls flooded my phone, accusations, pleas, disownments. My world crumbled, forcing me to confront the cost of love in a hostile environment. The call from Tyler came 3 weeks later as I navigated the haze of double shifts in Chicago, using work to numb the pain. His voice was hollow, broken. He told them, "Marcus, Dad spilled everything to your parents' mind, the church, the whole town's buzzing." Panic surged. My phone had been incessant with missed calls, voicemails filled with shock and judgment. What now? I asked, voice trembling. I'm out for good, staying with my cousin in Austin, but they're coming for you. Your parents are flying in to fix things. The walls closed in, my carefully constructed life in Chicago threatened by the past, but amid the fear, a resolve formed. Maybe it's time to stop running, I said, to face it head on. Tyler hesitated. You could lose it all, family, support. I've already lost you in a way, but hiding costs more. My parents arrived, the confrontation brutal. Tears, shouts, ultimatums, therapy, prayer, denial of my identity. This isn't you, my father insisted. It's a phase influenced by that city. I stood firm. It is me, and I won't apologize for it. The fallout was swift: disownment from my father, strained silence from relatives. But in the pain, liberation bloomed. I sought therapy, joined support groups, channeled energy into advocacy. Tyler struggled longer, our contact sparse. But he too found strength: therapy, PFLAG, a new life in Austin. When he called last spring, ready to reunite openly, hope reignited. Now we build slowly: visits, calls, plans for Austin, careers in helping others, family ties mending unevenly. Authenticity isn't easy, it demands sacrifice, but it's freedom worth every tear.